So my name is Silver Yang. I'm a marketing manager at MPOWER Financing. My hometown is Beijing, China. I came to the US as an international student and joined MPOWER about 5 years ago. It has been an incredibly rewarding experience for me because at MPOWER, we have a team of financing experts who are passionate about helping international students achieve their overseas education dreams. Also, many of us have been international students ourselves, like me, so we understand your needs firsthand. Now let me turn to our guests to let them introduce themselves. Ron, do you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Silva. Great to be back. Hey everyone, my name is Ron, and I'm currently I work at MPOWER Financing. I've been working here for the past 6 years, and currently my title is Senior Manager Underwriting. And a little bit of background about me. Originally, I'm from India. I did my undergrad there, and then I actually decided to come to the US and do my master's degree. And after I graduated from my master's, MPOWER is actually my first job, so that's why I've been with the company for a long time now. Like I said, 6 years. And the whole point of what motivated me to move to the US was I really wanted to study finance and I wanted to get that knowledge in finance. And that was my motivation to decide to move to the US and get an education. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. Back to you, Silva.
Thank you, Ron. What a great story. Now let's hear about Josiah.
Oh, okay. Hello. I'm Josiah Asafo. I'm from Ghana, West Africa, studying at Michigan Technological University in Houghton, USA. My background is in mechanical engineering, specialized in agricultural engineering back in my country, and moved to the US to study my master's in engineering management. Yeah. And I'm an ambassador for MPOWER Finance.
Thank you, Josiah. Welcome both of you to join us today. I'm now going to close this poll and I will read out the results. Okay, let's see. We have 87% of attendees from Africa, 1% from East Asia, and 6% from South and Southeast Asia. We also have some attendees from Pacific, European, Middle East, and other places in America. Which career field do you wish to pursue? We have 22% are studying communication and information systems. Welcome. And 55% choose other, wondering what your majors are. We have 13% choose health science, technology. Welcome. 3% from agriculture, food, and natural resources. 7% from human services. Welcome to you all. Have you referred a friend to MPOWER? Wow, we have 31% of the people say yes, you have referred a friend to MPOWER. That's awesome. 36% say I will do it soon. I'm sure our chat moderator will send a link in the chat box today, and please use that link to refer a friend, and you will get a reward for doing that. 32% would like to know more about it. You got it. You will know more about it in this webinar. Now let me ask our guests. I think Josiah probably have a good story to tell. Have you referred a friend to MPOWER?
Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them. We currently even we run this YouTube page where we talk about MPOWER 24/7. So most of the students can follow us on YouTube on MPOWER Ambassadors. We are always talking about loans, visa application with MPOWER, everything. As long as the students is being financed by MPOWER, they are free to join.
Nice, nice. Can you describe, just help our attendees to learn how to refer a friend?
Okay, so if you want to refer a friend, first of all, you have to find out if they are willing to study in the US or Canada, because MPOWER sponsors schools in US and Canada. So as long as they are willing to study in the US or Canada, you have to go to the MPOWER website, because they have this program going on, which is very nice. You get $300 for referring a friend, and your friend also gets $100 gift from MPOWER Finance. So you go to the website, generate your own referral code or your referral link, and then you send to your friend. And then it's as easy as it is. The link is specialized, so it leads you directly to create your account with MPOWER, and you're good to go.
Thank you, Josiah. So if you want to refer a friend to MPOWER, go to our website. I think one of our chat moderator has already sent a link in the chat. So click that chat, that link, go to our page and create your unique referral link or referral code and share it with your friend. And in that case, you will earn $300 cash reward once your friend's application got approved. And your friends will also get a $100 cash reward once they decide to take the loan. All right, let's dive in. So today's webinar that will be divided into two segments. The first half, we will feature a discussion with our guests, Ron and Josiah, on how to prepare your study abroad journey and get to know more about MPOWER. And the second half, we'll have a free Q&A session with you. Throughout the webinar, you can ask questions using the Q&A function. You will see it located at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll address some questions live, and our MPOWER team here will also available in the chat to answer your questions. All right, my first question, I want to know from both of you, why did you decide to pursue international education? Let's start with Ron.
Sure. So this was a long time ago. I think back in 2013, 2014, sometime I was deciding what I wanted to do. At that point of time, I was working at Amazon. And I was actually really interested in working in finance. So I was trying to get jobs in finance. And what actually happened was every person that I kind of spoke to, they told me you need to have like a formal degree or like some formal education in finance if you really want to get like a finance job. And then I had the choice to either study finance in my home country, which was India, or come to the US and study. And when I was actually trying to make that decision, I spoke to a lot of friends, spoke to a lot of people, and also all the people who worked in the industry as well. And from the advice that I got from all of them, a lot of people suggested it may be a good idea to go abroad. It'll help you expand your horizon. It'll teach you a lot more things. It'll make you a lot more independent. So that was my kind of reasoning to decide to come to the US, or basically not the US, basically leave my home country and study abroad somewhere. It basically opens you up to a lot more possibilities. And I think that's how I kind of decided that I need to go abroad and study. And finance, the program that I had to study, I always knew that's what I wanted to get into. So it was very easy, the second part. And that was pretty much how I decided to come and study abroad.
Which school did you go to?
I actually decided to go to Rochester Institute of Technology. I got admissions to two universities, one of Rochester Institute of Technology and one was Illinois Institute of Technology. The way I kind of made my decision was the school that I got the better scholarship in, that's the school I kind of chose, because finances obviously matter when you're pursuing higher education.
Yes, that's very correct. Now, Josiah, would you like to tell us why did you decide to come study abroad?
Okay, so back in Ghana, I completed Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. And after my engineering degree, I was working with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And I realized that there was so much opportunity in the business part of engineering. Because, most of the projects we were doing, we had to bring in foreigners to handle most of the project the government was doing in engineering management aspect. So that was what triggered me to study engineering management. But the problem was, I know engineering management is a professional course. And, in the US, most of these professional courses are not funded by the schools because you are not actually doing a research work. So I had these issues with finances because, the tuition we are paying in the US is no joke as compared to what we pay in Africa and other countries. The US charges more tuition than almost every country I've come across because the education here is top notch. So that was what led me to realize MPOWER because I was looking for financing options. And, you can't count on scholarships because even though you are qualified, because for instance, I was really qualified for a scholarship. But the thing is, it comes to a game of lottery, because if a school has 100 scholarships and there are about 20,000 applicants, I think about 5,000 of them are qualified for the scholarship. So it will now come to a game of lottery. So I think as an international student, I couldn't count my lack on scholarships if I really wanted to study in the US. So it came to the options of looking for external funding. And I realized, the students in US are allowed to take federal loans. but that is only restricted to citizens. And that made me delve more deeper. So I was like, okay, so is that an institution that will sponsor me without being a citizen? And I came across some banks, but they were all talking about a co-signer. And I don't really have anybody to co-sign any loan on my behalf, because even the people here, finding a co-signer in the US is difficult than finding a job, because people think if you don't pay the loan, they have to pay the loan on your behalf. And so finding a co-signer, especially being an international student and not having any direct family member here to do that for you, was another hurdle. So that was when I started looking for options. And then I came across MPOWER. So initially, it was unrealistic to me, because who will pay your tuition and everything without a co-signer? In the US, you have to build credit history to even take half of the amount MPOWER is giving to the international students. You have to build credit history for a lot of years. So I was like, who is willing to give this much money for, someone to study without credit history and all that? So it was unrealistic. But as I read a lot about the company and all that, I realized that it was realistic. And so that was how come it all came to pass. So also with the visa application, I had some hurdles. When I found out about MPOWER, actually I did not get an early date as at that time to go for my interview. So I have my loan and everything, but I could not go for my interview. But at that time, I was already speaking to a lot of people about MPOWER, like, hey, there's this company. Because I had a lot of friends too that were applying for schools in the US who were also looking for funding. And that was even including my sister, because my sister is studying here with me as well on MPOWER. Yeah, so I put a lot of students on MPOWER at that time. I think about 50 students from Ghana came through me that time with MPOWER. And so I realized that, okay, so this thing is that real and people don't really know much about it. So I enrolled with in the next semester. And my interview went smooth as well, because one thing that I think the students should take note of is loan is one of the strongest financial supports you can have for visa interviews, because scholarships, most of them are not based on need. Most of the scholarships are based on academic merit, and these are high academic merits. And so to count on a scholarship is good, but not that strong as a loan, because a loan is like a financial agreement between you and your servicer. So I had a lot of hope with the loan. And when I went, I think I did not even spend up to 2 minutes with the interviewer, and the visa was approved. So that was my journey.
Thank you, Josiah. Thank you for telling me in detail of your whole journey of finding funding and also get your visa approved. I think Josiah just now actually touched many points that we're going to dive in today. But now, let me ask Ron, does Josiah's journey also align with yours? Did you have similar experience when trying to find funding?
Yeah, I think funding was the second point that was the hardest to do. After you get your admission, the next thing is to kind of figure out how you're going to pay for that admission that you just got. So I kind of had to do a similar thing, went through similar banks in the US. First, I investigated like federal government student loans that Josiah mentioned. Most likely, most students are not eligible for that. It's only for US students. And then after that, you go through the banks in your home country. And then I think at the time when I was going, MPOWER was not there, or it probably just started. It was a really small company. So I had to go the other route and get funding from like a local bank in India. But now that 6 years later, when I look at how easy the MPOWER application process was compared to what I had to do, I had to collect all my documents manually, physically go to the bank, submit all of them there. The whole processing time at the bank was like, I think it took like 15 to 30 days to process everything. And then you have to keep going to the bank like in person to follow up to get your loan. So yeah, it was a very, very different process than what we have today. And yeah, I think funding was the second hardest thing to kind of get through after you get the admission letter.
Yeah. As an international student, that we definitely have many challenges when we're trying to find funding in the US or Canada, that we do not qualify for the loan that usually offered by the government, by the local government. That when we go to trying to go to banks, as what Josiah just described, that we need to make sure that we have a co-signer, and that will actually put lots of pressure on the person who's going to be our co-signer, because they will be responsible for helping or just repay the loan instead of you. So here comes MPOWER, and I'm very proud that MPOWER offers loan without the requirement of cosigner or collateral. You can apply on your own without burdening your friends or family. And we offer a loan up to 100,000 US dollar per person. And it's a free online application, it's free application. And we want to definitely want to know more about how does MPOWER loan works. But before we start that, I want to ask Ron, if someone has decided to study abroad, when do you think that it's the ideal time for them to start their loan application?
So the way I kind of did my profile is, I think the hardest thing to get is the admission. Once you actually have the admission, I think that's the best time to start figuring out the next steps. And I think that's the point where you should look for financing. There's nothing wrong with starting to look for financing before, but just the way I kind of think about things is, only if you have the admission, there's point in looking for financing, because even if you have all the financing in the world, but you don't have the admission that college, it doesn't really make any sense. So there's nothing you can do about it. So the way I would structure it is, first get your admission, then start looking for finances, and then after that, start getting all your documents and everything, getting it ready for the visa interview, because I think that's the third most important step before you actually go to your student journey.
So Ron gets his admission and then thinking about getting fund and also apply for a loan. That's actually very smart, because if you want to apply for MPOWER's loan, that we will want to see your offer letter, your acceptance letter from your school. Josiah, does that also align with you? When did you thinking about getting a loan, and when did you actually take action to start your application?
Okay, so for me, before I started the admission, I was already looking for finances, because I know for the US, the tuition is really high. So, and then in my country, one thing is the banks in my country will sponsor the local universities. They wouldn't pay tuition outside to a foreign country. They wouldn't do that. So me, for my country, was out of the question. So I started checking online even before my admission. I even tried applying to the Fulbright stuff and all that, but I realized that, for the Fulbright stuff, they are all targeted towards research. So like I said, for masters, the best option was the loan. So once I got my admission, I already had my MPOWER account already, so I just applied. Yeah.
Nice. After you start thinking about getting a loan, and you think that, yes, I have to find a lender, and the different lender have different type of products. Some have fixed interest rate, some has variable interest rate, and they may have different terms for repayment. And they also have different reputations. So I want to ask both of you, like, how important it is to find a trusted lender in your process? I will start with Ron.
Okay, sure. So right now, with all the experience that I have, I can give a really good answer to this, because I studied finance, and that's kind of what they teach you, what to look for when you're borrowing or lending money. So some of the things that I kind of look for, first thing is always have a fixed interest rate, because a variable interest rate, you don't really know what the future is going to hold by the whole thing that it's variable. So for me personally, I always like to fixed interest rate. That way I know exactly what I'm going to owe every month. I know exactly how long it's going to take me to pay off that loan, and I have all the details basically. So for me, fixed interest rate was very important. The second thing, like you mentioned, was the reputation. So I'm not going to really go with the small lender who I don't really know about. At the point when I was applying in India, there were like these couple of small lenders, I think in cities. I didn't really go with them. I preferred like like a national bank in India. So that's the kind of lender that I chose. At that point, MPOWER was not really an option for me, like I said before. But currently, looking at the way things are, MPOWER, I think, would really be the best option, because it kind of checks all the boxes. It's an international lender. It lends to students in 190 different countries. It's really big in the market currently, so that reputational risk is kind of fixed. Second thing currently is, I think MPOWER is the only option in the market which gives you a fixed interest rate. Like I said in the beginning, fixed interest rates is a very, very big factor to me. So I think looking at those two factors, I think MPOWER is the only option that satisfies both. I don't really see any other thing in the market currently. Josiah, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, when it comes to taking loans, since I'm also now into finance, I moved to engineering management, so I'm doing a lot of finance. One thing which the students should take note of is the time value of money. Because since you are doing interest payment now, it means your interest is not going to be compounded over the years. If you are taking a loan and you have to do your principal payment along with your interest from the start of the loan, let's see if MPOWER was letting the students do the payments with the interest after school, it means it's not only their principal that's going to compound, their interest is going to compound. And that is going to increase the amount of money they are going to pay in the end, which will not benefit the students at the other end. So that was one of the main reasons why looking at the loan from the interest point, I chose MPOWER because it has a fixed interest rate, and then you're also paying the interest whilst you are studying, meaning your interest is not going to compound over time. Also, one thing the students should also take note is that you are paying over 10 years. Okay, so if you are paying over 10 years, it means the time value of money is going to favor you. Because if, assuming I took a loan 10 years ago and I'm making a payment of $500 a month today, 10 years ago, $500 was a lot of money. But today, that money might not even pay my rent, which means I'll be comfortable today paying $500 than 10 years ago. So if you have a loan with a long period of payment, it also means you are going to be comfortable paying the loan without a hassle, because definitely maybe 8 years from now, the salary you projected paying your loan out of might have been double, but your loan amount will not change because of the fixed interest rate.
Thank you, Josiah. I want to take this chance to let Ron to describe our repayment term and also our in-school payment.
Right. So our repayment terms are pretty simple. It's usually a 10-year loan and it's fixed. Like I said in the beginning, it's fixed interest rate, fixed term. So when you actually sign your loan documents with us, you'll get the sheet of paper called the TIL. It's called Truth in Lending Act. And on that sheet of paper, you'll actually see your payments for the next 10 years, on which date you're supposed to pay, and like how much is the amount that you're going to pay. So I'm going to go through some examples in this scenario. So let's assume you borrowed $25,000 for your education, and it's the first year. So the way it would kind of work is your loan starts in fall 2023. You took out a loan for $25,000, but you don't need the full $25,000 for the first semester. So you need only $10,000 for fall and another $15,000 for spring, and that's when you kind of graduate also. So the way it would work is we would disburse the funds to you in fall. So $10,000 we would send to your school, which you would use to pay your tuition. And on that $10,000, you would start kind of paying interest. And currently our interest rates are $12.99 a month. So on average, your payment would be around probably $130 to $140 on a $10,000 loan. So that's the payment you would be making every month. And then when it comes to January, when we would disburse your second amount, which is 15,000, so it'll give you the total of 25,000. At that point, so from January onwards, your payment would go up to around $215 to $230 at the 12.99 interest rate. And that's kind of how it works. So you would start school, you would pay only how much it was, like the interest on the amount that was disbursed first. Then if there's a second disbursement, you would start paying interest on the total amount that was disbursed. If there are 4 disbursements, it would just be incremental that way. And once you start all your interest payments, when you graduate, your interest payments are going to be standard until you graduate. Only once you graduate, there's also a 6 months grace period where your payment will not change. Once that grace period is also done, then you would start paying interest and principal. So on a $25,000 loan, your monthly payment would go from around $250 to $230 to around $350. And you would be paying that $350 payment until you close out that loan. So after you graduate, for the next 9 years, approximately, you would pay it off. And say you get like a huge signing bonus or anything, you can pay off the loan early as soon as you graduate. There is no prepayment penalty. There are no penalties of any sort. If you get like a huge lump sum payment, you can pay off your loan, and there is nothing else that you need to worry about, just the interest rate.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. Hey, Josiah, since you have interacted with many students who are also planning to study abroad, who are applying for a loan, and could you share, like, from their perspective, how's experiencing of finding fundings and how's their perspective about Empower?
Okay, so for finding fundings, I think the students should always try to narrow their search. You know, a lot of students they always broaden their search. If you go to Google right now, you type find funding for your graduate studies, you get about 20 million replies. But out of that 20 million, I can tell you about only 10 are genuine. And you shouldn't waste so much time on that. As long as MPOWER is willing to fund you, you will be very strict with the funding because, like I said, you are trying to meet dates with your appointments, with your scheduling, with everything. And so once you get this solid funding like MPOWER funding, you should move on to other stuff and then also put more effort into preparing for your interview. That is more important because MPOWER right now, MPOWER is very fast. I think there are people who are even getting decisions in 1 hour, in even 30 minutes of their loan application. And so as long as this is so easy, I don't think you should waste a lot of time because we all made that mistake. Like I said, I was wasting a lot of time on Fulbright and all that. But if you have such a process that is so fast, I think the students should try and then finish their funding aspect with MPOWER as soon as possible and then concentrate on other stuff.
Thank you, Josiah. I want to ask you a follow-up question. Since you just mentioned that your experience of finding a cosigner. So I think I want to ask this question. I see some people have asked in the Q&A function that if someone have a cosigner, does it still make sense to choose Empower?
Okay, so one thing is for the US, taking a loan is not just about cosigner, because if your cosigner does not have the kind of credit you see the banks are requiring, it's as useless as not having a cosigner. Because you know, $100,000 is a lot of money. That's the maximum MPOWER is giving. So let's assume your studies is going to cost you around $60,000. Now, most of the banks in US, I would say 95% of the banks would not easily lend out $65,000 because that person co-signing for you must have an extraordinary credit history for a bank to lend out. Because even looking for loans, you know, I'm here right now and I'm studying finance in engineering management. So I have personally experienced what I'm talking about. Even finding $10,000 from a bank, they will scrutinize your credit history. They will, because you don't just, because they are looking at you repaying. And so for an international student coming to study in the US and you are in need of about $69,000, $70,000 in home, finding a co-signer who can facilitate that amount of money is not easy at all. It's not easy at all. You may find people who are willing, but for them to be qualified is another story. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Josiah. It's really difficult if you want to find a cosigner. So Ron, do you want to ask any points that you want to add?
Yeah, like Josiah said, finding a cosigner is kind of hard to do. But something that I want to mention about the Empower application, we don't really need a cosigner, but we still accept kind of sponsor documents. So if someone is helping you out with your education, this can be your either your family, friends, anyone who's helping you out in your education. You can also use them as supporting funds to help bolster your Empower application. So I would recommend using them as well, and that can actually help you get approved for an Empower loan.
Okay, thank you. So I think our attendees here wants to learn more about Empower Loan. So I want to invite Ron to give us a overview of Empower Loan. For example, our cosigner and collateral requirements, our interest rate, our in-school payment. If you can give us a brief overview.
Sure. So an Empower loan, like Silver said, it can go to either a US or Canadian school, and it has to be a partner school that we work with. Some of the fixed terms for our loan are the interest rates. Interest rates are fixed. I think interest rates currently range between 11.99 and 12.99 for an Empower student loan. And the loan payments are fixed for the entire term of the loan, so you'll know exactly what amount you're going to be paying, which month, for the next 10 years, pretty much. That is the second thing. Third thing that's really good about the Empower loan is we don't require a collateral or cosigner or anything of that sort. I know a lot of home country banks require that. I think when I was coming here, we had to put I think like a house or something as collateral with a bank before they would disperse funds for my education. So yeah, Empower doesn't require anything of that sort, so no collateral, no cosigner. Some other plus points about the Empower loan are we actually provide a lot more services than traditional banks. Some examples are the Path to Success program and the help to get a visa. I know some companies actually charge you for a visa letter. Empower does not have any charges to help you get a visa. Another thing that's really good for our loan program in particular is the Path to Success program, where we actually help students find jobs after they graduate as well. And some of the ways we kind of help them are we do resume reviews for them. We also conduct mock interview sessions, and we are kind of growing that function as well. So we are trying to grow that so it's easier for students who are Empower borrowers to find jobs in the US or Canada, wherever they are. I think those were the
Okay.
key highlights about our loans. Anything else that you want me to cover?
I want to know more. So how does the school get the money? How do Empower disperse the fund to school?
Yeah, so that can get a little bit complicated depending on which country you are in. If you're in the US, it's a little more complicated because we actually check with the school if you're actually enrolled with the school. That process is called the certification process. And as part of that process, we just send an email to the school to find out who you are you actually enrolled with them, when your start date is, when you're going to graduate. And once the school confirms all those details, the school will also tell us how much funds they require for your tuition. For example, like even if you're approved for a $50,000 loan in the US, but the school says you only require $20,000 to do this program, the school would tell us that, and then we would disburse only $20,000 to the school. So that's how the whole certification part of the process works in the US. In Canada, it's a little bit different. Some schools have the full certification process where they tell us exactly how much funds they require. Some schools do not have that. So in Canada, the process can vary from school to school.
Thank you, Ron. And I want to turn to Josiah. From your experience of getting a loan from Empower, how long does the whole application take you? And is
Okay,
there any
so
tips to make it faster?
yeah, once when you submit your application, you should make sure you upload all documents they require of you, because it's as fast as you upload your documents. You should make sure you don't miss any of the documents, because they have compulsory documents and they have optional documents. For the optional documents, it shouldn't be a headache, but for the compulsory documents, which are documents you have already, because your admission letter, you have it right when you are admitted. You have your passport, you have your IDs, you have your support letter, which is attached to the bank statement of the family support or anything you are submitting. And for the family support, it doesn't have to be a lot of money. This is one issue that most of the students have been asking me about, because they should know if they had a lot of money, they wouldn't take a loan in the first place. So you shouldn't like be so much concerned about showing a bank statement with a lot of money. It's not really that much necessary. Just show what you wrote in your application. If you said your parents are going to provide $3,000, just show a bank statement that shows they have that $3,000. And Empower is not going to ask them to bring that money anyway, because most of the times the amount of money that Empower certifies is almost more than the required amount you are always asking. And then they certify with the school. In my case, for instance, I was approved for $50,000 for my first year. But when they certify with the school, most of the schools in the US, they have estimates of your personal expense. Most of the students have been also asking me that question, so I want to clarify it here. For the schools, they have estimates. Michigan Tech, for instance, I'm studying at Michigan Tech. I was approved for $50,000 in a year. Okay, but Michigan Tech, for my first semester in Michigan Tech, they certified for $18,000. Now, this $18,000, only $11,000 was my tuition. Okay, so the school calculates looking at the how much students pay for rent around the area. The school knows. Most of the schools have that estimate, so it shouldn't be the problem of the students. The school will do that all the students will have to do is you can go to your finance office at the school, and then you go to the person in charge of loans and certification, and then you talk to them that, okay, you are being financed by a private loan, so you wanted to know if they are certifying including your personal expense, and they will always do that. Most of the students here, I always direct them to the finance office. And when they go, they will listen to you. Okay, so what's your plan? Because sometimes you might not even need up to what they are certifying for your personal expense. They will work with you, and then MPOWER also works with them directly, and they will certify the required amount you need. So mostly it wouldn't be, for instance, I had a student contact me yesterday that she checked the school website at Michigan Tech, and her cost of attendance for the year was about $48,000. But in reality, you will not spend up to $36,000 a year in Michigan Tech. All those costs sometimes you see on the websites of the school are estimates. They are just estimates. But once you get admitted, the cost you see on your I-20 is normally what really matters. But what you see on the website, because most of the graduates, most of the schools that are offering graduate courses will not exceed 50,000 a year. Will not exceed 50,000. 98% of them will not exceed that amount of money. So I think the students should take note of that as well.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. So in a summary, that it's important to know how much money do you need in total to study abroad, and you can find that information on the school's website. And I think it's called cost of attendance in the US. That's it also called cost of attendance in Canada, wrong?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes. So go to look for the cost of attendance on your school's website, and your school will have the estimation for you. But sometimes the estimation may not be super accurate. For example, Josiah said his friends experienced that the number shown on the school side is higher than reality. So I want to ask if there's any other tips that what if you want to know the actual cost for your study abroad, that where can you look into that? How do you measure that before you come to study abroad? I see Josiah has been nodding, so I will ask you this question.
Okay, so for that one, it's very easy. You just have to check the school's website and know the amount of credits you are required to register per semester. And so you look at for instance, Michigan Tech, I have to register at least 9 credits. So you just check the school website and check how much you pay per credit, which is on every school's website. So if they write maybe per 3 credits, let's say I'm taking accounting is 3 credits, and I have to pay per credit is 1,002. I just now multiply 1,002 by 9 credits and know my tuition for the semester. And then you just personally ask yourself how much you need in personal expense. You can go online, check with the accommodations the school is providing, and know how much you need in personal expenses. And you definitely be sorted out. You know at least close to the exact figure you are looking for. Yeah.
Thank you, Josiah. And also, when you get a loan from MPOWER, that in our application that you also need to fill out the total cost of your study abroad education, and also your estimation of the living expense. And so Ron, could you let us know that what type of cost does MPOWER count in when we review the application?
So we kind of look at most of your costs. So we also include living expenses. But the way this kind of works is for the US, we can disburse living expenses to the school, and most of those costs are given to you to help you live, basically pay for your rent, food, all those other living expenses that you can have, those kind of things. So in the US, it's very easy. Gets a little bit more complicated in Canada, because in Canada it's based on by school. So some schools, they accept living expenses and they transfer the funds to the students. Some schools do not accept living expenses, and we cannot transfer those funds to the schools because they will not transfer it to you. And to get a more clear list about Canada, we have email communication that goes out once you select your school. You will get a communication from us if they accept living expenses or they do not accept living expenses, things like that. So for Canada, it's a little bit complicated currently, but for the US, you can get whatever you need.
How about scholarships? Does MPOWER also take into account as scholarships? I also see there's one attendee asked this question. It says that I don't have credit in India, but I got a 20% scholarship. Do either of those things help or hurt my chance of getting a loan from MPOWER?
Okay, so I'll take it in two parts. So the first part was the credit in India. If you do not have credit in India, it does not matter. It won't improve or reduce your chance of getting a loan. It's pretty much a non-factor for us. We don't really look at credit scores. The only thing that will make a change there is if you have a credit score in India and you have not made payments or you've defaulted on a loan, that's the kind of thing that can make a difference. But if you don't have a credit score, it won't really make any difference to you. That's the first part of the question. The second one was for a scholarship. The more scholarships you have, the better it is for your loan application. I can just give that as general advice. Any time you're looking at finance, the more kind of money you have, the easier it is for us to approve a loan for you.
Okay. And how about saving? Because I know MPOWER also trying to estimate how much money that the students have on their hand and how much money they will need to complete their study. And then we'll look into the gap of finance that here comes MPOWER that we can help you to fill the gap. So how do students show the savings or the total funds that they have on their hand? Besides scholarship, how about the savings and like maybe sponsor too?
Yeah. So for savings, you can show how much ever savings that you have. I would say you don't only need to show your savings. You can, if anyone's sponsoring you, like I mentioned before, if it's your dad, parents, aunt, uncle, whoever is sponsoring you, if you want to show funding that they have, you can. The one thing I would say is, like Josiah said, there's no really minimum requirement that you need to have a certain amount of savings to get a loan from MPOWER. I know in the past we've funded people who have zero savings as well. So it really depends on like your application, what program you're studying, things like that. So just show how much ever funds you have. If you have a lot of funds, show all of it. If you don't have a lot of funds, just be very honest in your application, show exactly how much you have, and we will do the loan application from there. The reason I'm saying that is we don't really want to put you in a bad financial situation where if you are getting bank statements, you're taking other loans and everything, and then applying to us for a loan. That will actually put you in a lot of stress after you graduate, and we don't really want that for you. So we want to have you have like a very successful and a very sustainable growth in the future. We don't want the loan debt to become unsustainable where you're only kind of making loan payments and you're not able to survive. So yeah, just show us how much you have. There's no real amount that I can tell you. I can tell you in the past we've also funded people who haven't shown us anything. We've funded people
Okay.
who've shown us zero in savings. So yeah.
Thank you. Josiah, any points that you want to add to this question?
Yeah, for the part Ron talked about having financial obligations back in your country. You know, for the African students, they should take note that we don't have a credit system in Africa. We don't use the credit system. However, all the banks in Africa are also enrolled online, and they are able to certify information to the banks in other countries. And so if you have any financial obligation to any bank whatsoever, make sure you have settled it before applying. Because if you owe $100 and you are not paying back, it's just common knowledge that you wouldn't pay back $100,000, and so your application might be refused. And so if you owe any bank, make sure you settle it before you start your application.
Thank you, Josiah. And I want to ask both of you. So now, Ron, you have already completed your study overseas, and then you have a job, and I'm very happy that to have you as my coworker. And Josiah, that you have successfully got yourself to the US, and you are currently studying in a school. If you think back about your whole journey, is there anything that you would do different? I'll start with Josiah.
If I was going back, I'd have applied to MPA somewhere in 2021, and by now I'd have been done with my masters. Because when I was initially, I didn't know about MPOWER, and so I had to stay for a year trying to find funding, and then so if I was to change something, I'd have learned about MPOWER very early, and I think that would have helped me. But still, I think I made the best decision to study in the US, because an education here is the best you can think of, and being educated in the US and being funded in the US is really a dream come true for some of us that are coming from Africa. Yeah.
Thank you, Josiah. Ron.
For me, if I had to go back Would I do anything different? I don't really think so. I really like where I am. I actually, if I think about it, 2 years before I came to the US, I had no plans of coming to the US at all. Most likely, I would have probably still been in India, and it just happened to work out that I'm in the US and I'm currently where I am. So I really don't think I would change anything. I think I made the right decisions at the right times as well. Like Josiah said, I don't even think I would have come earlier or later. I think I came at like the perfect time. So yeah, I don't really want to change any of my decisions. I think I made the right choice at the right time, and I'm not looking back at all.
Wow, I'm happy that you feel this is like a really you make every choice the best choice that you want to make. That feeling is so awesome. So let me ask you this, like is there any part that you feel scary or difficult or frustrated during your journey?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like when I was in school doing all my assignments and everything, things were hard. After graduating also, I think the hardest part was, I think, finding a job. I think the day you graduate and if you don't have a job lined up, I think that's the most stressful part of it. And I think that part lasted me, I think, like a month and a half, where every day you're just getting up, applying to jobs like the entire day, things like that. It's a little bit stressful. But things kind of work out after that, because after you get your first job, you're like, okay, everything kind of paid off. We did a lot of work to finally get here. So yeah, I think the most stressful part was, yeah, finding a job after you graduate.
How did you find your first job? What preparation have you done in school?
Uh, Again, like I studied finance and everything, and I'm working at MPOWER, so it was very, very related to my coursework. And the actual way I found this job was, I think I give this plug at every webinar that I do, was pretty much through networking. So the way I found the Empower job, a friend of mine called Yasmin used to work at the company a long time ago, and that's how I kind of found out about Empower. Before that, I didn't even know Empower existed. So it's all networking. The more people you network with, the more kind of job opportunities you get. And that's why I keep plugging networking at at all of the webinars that I do. It's very, very important to find jobs.
Yes, thank you, Ron. Networking is very important. So Josiah, have you started thinking about getting a job?
Yeah, for applying to jobs, I started back in my country, and then with Empower, to becoming an ambassador of Empower, a lot of companies started reaching out to me too. So for me, so far, it has been a good journey, and I'm still working on it.
Okay, so is there any difficult or frustrating experience that you ever had, like throughout the journey so far?
Oh yeah. Education in the US can be overwhelming at the start, but once you get used to the system, when I came, this place, most of the coursework was online, unlike the traditional way in my country. So I had to adjust to this whole Canvas stuff and all that, but it was worth it. So yeah, that was the difficulty I had earlier on. And the grading system here too is tough. Michigan Tech, for instance, 90, an A is mostly around 92 to 100. So you don't have to score anything less than, although I had most A's in mine, but it's not that easy. You have to like study a lot. Yeah.
Okay, I guess there are probably like many differences that you actually encountered after you come to the US, maybe also culture shock.
Yeah.
We have many people I see that from the Africa continent. So I think they probably also want to hear about like what are the difference that they should look for, when they come to study in the US.
Okay, so I always say this: if you move to this country, you have to learn to speak for yourself. Back in Africa, we have this whole thing with speaking out to people. So Africans seem to be a little bit conserved. But this place, you have to speak, you have to say your mind, and people are okay if you say your mind. And so they have to also learn to be confident, because here everyone seems to be very confident, even the kids. When you talk with them, they are very confident. So they have to, and that should also transcend even with their preparation coming here, even with their visa interviews, everything. Western countries translate fear as lies. Okay, so if you are being asked questions in your interview and you let fear to overcome you. They think you are lying, and they translate confidence as truth. So if you are able to speak out for yourself, you are good to go here. And one of the things too is the food. The food is totally different, so they should prepare for that. The food is different. They will have to adjust. The food is different, especially my guys coming from Ghana and Nigeria. They will have to adjust. And also with the social life, when it comes to relationships and all that, people here seem to be very open. And so if you are coming from Africa, you know, our system, we are not that open with you know, dating and all that. This place is totally different. Everybody has their own views, and you have to learn to respect their views and their feelings. People do what they want, and you have to appreciate them and accept them for who they are.
Learn to be open to speak for yourself.
Yeah.
That's very great advice, Josiah. So Ron, how's your take on this? You know, any different that you feel?
I think pretty similar, but one thing that Josiah said, which I really liked, was the whole grading system in the US is very, very different from your home country. I think it takes you a while to get used to it. One of the main differences that I can mention is I think in India, when you study, the professors kind of tell you what to learn and like what's going to come. Like there's no choice of changing classes, or you don't like a professor, you can change your professor, things like that. All those are not really options back home when you're in India. I don't know if it's the same in Africa. It's basically a more rote structure of learning. So you know what you're studying, and that's how your classes are going to be. But in the US, it's very different. You can actually pick and choose. If you don't like a class in the morning, you can choose the same class in the evening. If you don't like a professor that you're not getting along with your professor, you can probably change that to another professor as well. In India, you couldn't do that. So that whole grading scale is very different. Another thing that's very different about the grading scale is I think in India it was more just based on tests and everything. Over here, there's a lot of emphasis put onto class participation, projects and presentations and things like that, and you're graded throughout the course. And it's not only just a midterm and a final grade that you get. Every day in class, you can get a different grade. So you have to get used to that kind of grading system as well.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, all those difference makes overseas education interesting and more exciting. So here we get a question from one of our attendees. I think Ron, you just touched up a point, so I will ask you this question. So this person asked that if they want to start a loan application, and should they wait until they get admitted by a school or before?
Right. You can start your loan application even before you get admitted. That's not a problem. But you would only see actual movement once you get your admission letter. And the reason for that is simple. If you're not really admitted and we are not sure you got admitted to that place, we can't give you a proper full loan decision. We can give you like maybe a conditional offer or something, but that's all dependent on your admission. You can start the application before it, but if you want real concrete movements, I would say it's only after you get the admission letter that we'll be able to do that.
Okay. Here's another question. Should I make a new application for each school I apply to? If someone wants to apply to multiple schools, and should they have different application for each school?
Yeah, if you're applying for multiple schools, say you got into 3 schools and you're kind of deciding which one to go to, I would say apply for all 3 schools. You get a decision on all of them. Maybe 1 you'll get rejected, 2 you'll get accepted, and then you'll kind of decide which school you want to go to. I would highly recommend, yeah, multiple applications for different schools.
Okay.
But if one caveat there, but if you kind of know which school you want to go to, there's no point in applying for multiple schools. But I leave that decision up to you. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So like if students that they apply for one school for one semester, and the second semester that they want to come back and apply for more loan, and how's that process goes? Does it easier? Does it feel easier than the first time application?
Yeah, it's much easier than the first time application because once you're approved with us, you'll already have all your information. I think from your dashboard, there's an easy way to request more funds where you only have to submit like a fraction of the documents. Say first time we asked for 10 documents. The second time, if you're getting a new loan, we only ask for 3 additional documents. So those are the kind of things. So I would say first apply for your first loan, and if you ever need additional funds, you can always apply for more.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. As we approach to the final moments of our webinar, Josiah and Ron, would you like to share some last minute advice for our attendees and share some tips for their upcoming study abroad journey? I will start with Josiah. Tell us, what do you like most about MPOWER?
Okay, so what I like most about MPOWER is their timely disbursement of the loans to the schools. Because most of the time, before you start your semester, your fees has been paid already. This semester, for instance, before I started class, my tuition has been paid already. It has been paid already. So that's what I love about MPOWER, because loan companies normally disbursement of funds is a problem. But with MPOWER, that issue is not really a problem with MPOWER. And then more importantly, most of the students have been asking this question, so I want to clarify on it, pertaining to how when the school disburses their personal expense to them. Now, for the US, the schools have a system. I had this information from the finance office here. The school has a system to disburse any money remaining at a certain date to the students. So Michigan Tech, for instance, MPOWER paid my personal expense to the school, but the school will deduct the tuition, and then at some point of the semester, they'll realize, okay, there is no more registration, of course, it's nothing. The accountant's office of the school has to zero on their accounting. And so any money left in your account, they'll have to pay it to you is in that check or in direct deposits. And so for disbursement of funds, it may take some time when you arrive to receive your personal expense, but you are definitely going to receive it. So the students should come prepared. They shouldn't think on their first day in school, they are going to receive the money in their pocket, because there is a system the schools follow. So it will take maybe 2 weeks for the school to forward the personal expense to them. Also, with the visa interviews, most of the students coming from Africa should know that the loan sanction letter, as long as the amount on it exceeds their total cost of attendance, it should be enough to get the visa. However, the reason why most of them are being refused is that they are not able to explain it well to the consular. These consulars have to make a decision within 2 minutes or sometimes even 1 minute, 30 seconds. And so you should make sure you give them as much important information as possible about your funding when you are asked. Most of the students that I personally talked to had their visas approved with just the loan sanction letter. But this is how they should go about it. The consular officer requesting information about the loan is looking for just 3 things about the loan. 1, is it covering your total cost of attendance? 2, is it would it put any financial burden on you whilst you are studying? And 3, is the company legit? Now the third one has been answered already, because the consulates they do know about MPOWER already, because a lot of students come there with MPOWER. But these 2 questions should be answered when you are asked about your funding. So I advise the students to say something like this when they are asked about their funding. If you ask how are you funding your education, you should go like maybe I have a full student loan. The underlying word is full because it's covering your entire cost of attendance. So I have a full student loan from MPOWER to cover my full cost of attendance, including my personal expenses for my first year. And also I have the chance to apply for a second loan for my second year. So I don't think I will have any issues with my finances. So when it comes to my finances, I'm sorted out. You think this alone has covered your financial aspect of the loan? Any student I told who said this had their visa approved, and I'm talking about over 20 students alone this year, had their visa with just the loan sanction letter. Because as long as the amount in your loan sanction letter exceeds your total cost of attendance, you don't have to attach any bank statement or anything. A loan is enough. Just that they have to know how to go about it. And when they are asked about settling their interest payments whilst in school, they should always tell the consulars that although they are making interest payments, the amount they are making for the interest payment is very less. And so even the amount MPOWER is giving to them as personal expense totally exceeds their interest payment. And so even if they don't have an employment on campus, they will still be able to settle their loan interest payments without any hassle. And I think they'll be good to go. Yeah.
Thank you, Josiah. Thank you very much. And I'll have Ron to have your final advice to our international students. What's your final tips?
Sure, I'm going to keep this really short. First tip I think I already said was what was it? First tip was network a lot. That's the most important. Second tip for you guys is always be open to new experiences. Like we discussed a lot today, you're going to get a lot of culture shock. You're going to meet a lot of new people, a lot of interesting people. All the people from your class are not all going to be from the US. They're probably going to be from like 10 different countries. So yeah, just be open to that, and like, yeah, you'll have a really good experience. Trust me.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you to both of you for joining me today for this introduction to MPOWER